Hello there, I'm Krista Doran, and this is episode 2 of Let Me Slip Into Something a Little Less Comfortable. And I think I'm going to turn this into a podcast because I think this video series is a little bit outdated, but I am super inspired to have conversations that a lot of people don't want to have, uncomfortable conversations, and I wasn't always like that. The experiences I've had in my life and the pain I've had to sit in for the past 2 years after losing my daughter Leah almost 2 years ago has really taught me how to sit in discomfort and how to support other people in discomfort. And I really love having these conversations that people don't want to have because it does a couple things. The first thing is it connects us to other people who are having a similar situation. The second thing is did I say the second thing? The first thing is it connects us to people who are having a similar situation, maybe suffering silently. The second thing is it allows us to be seen and not paint a perfect picture of what's happening in our life. And the third thing is it allows having conversations like this help provide a different perspective so that other people know how to support us. And I think that's one of the biggest things the biggest questions that I continue to get or that my friends have gotten over the past year is, what do we do? How do we support? How do we show up? What does Krista need? What does their family need? Because thankfully not a lot of people will know what it's like to lose a child. And I've learned a lot of lessons in the past 2 years. And so I'm just really looking forward to having these uncomfortable conversations with really amazing women who are navigating their own discomfort and their own struggles, because it just helps us, again, feel more connected, feel less alone, and be able to be seen and supported through life. Because life is, I call it brutal. It's brutal and beautiful. And without the brutal, there's not as much beauty. And that's what I've realized. Without the pain, there's not as much joy. But we can have both. Both can coexist in the same space. So today I am going to talk with one of my dear friends, Karen Lenahan, and we have different painful experiences, but one of the things that Karen has done really well is she's showed up for me over the past 2 years. She is one of the few people in my life who has really seen me and shown up for me consistently. Because a lot of people show up in the beginning and then they sort of lose, they sort of get wrapped up in their own lives, which is totally fair. But she's been one of those people who's really shown up for me and has her own story, which I'll let her tell you. So I would like to introduce my friend Karen. Karen, scoot in here so people can see you. All right.
There I am.
Okay, here you are. And just do you want to give a brief little intro about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Karen. I own Small Kitchen Big Taste, which is where we are.
Yes, that's why there's milk.
Yeah, there's milk in the back.
Fresh eggs.
And Krista and I have been friends for, I think, almost 11 years. I am here today because in the past year and a half, I've had 2 miscarriages. One was in December of 2018, and I was 8 weeks pregnant, and one was in August 2019, and I was almost 14 weeks pregnant. And I've had quite a roller coaster of navigating what it's like to lose 2 pregnancies, 2 babies, to do that while being a mom and a partner and owning a business. And you know, it's been a rough and wild year and a half, and I've learned a ton, and I'm still learning a ton about grief and loss, what that looks like for me, and also what it looks like sort of for other people as well. So that's my current story.
And I think why I love having Karen here is that so many women go through what you've experienced, but they go through it alone because a lot of times they have miscarriages early on, so nobody knows, so then they don't have that support.
Right.
And so they're in pain alone.
One of the things that, sort of the phrases that hit home so much with me is that miscarriage and pregnancy loss often is such a disenfranchised grief because
Right.
people don't know, many people don't tell anyone that they're pregnant before 12 weeks for the reason that, you know, it's not necessarily a guarantee. I mean, nothing is ever but and women and even partners and men don't feel validated in their grief because no one knew, or no one knows what to say, or no one knows how to grieve this person or soul, or however you want to think about it, that no one's ever met. So it can feel incredibly isolating to be grieving someone or something that was so near and dear to you from the moment you found out, and then no one knows how to honor that grief for you. So for many people who've had miscarriages or have lost pregnancies or infants, it's a feeling of grief is isolating no matter how you're grieving or when you're grieving, but it's a feeling of isolation that's really tough.
And I was sharing with somebody that the only thing that makes grief harder is grieving alone without a support system. Having the support system in place, it doesn't take away the pain.
Right.
It just makes you feel like you're not alone.
Yes.
And nobody can take the burden. They can't carry, I wrote this blog a few months ago about the backpack. Nobody can carry the backpack for me.
Right.
But when I'm on the road, leveled from the weight of it, there's people with me.
Right.
They're walking the path with me so that I'm not alone.
Yes.
And that's I think a powerful thing to say. You know, we have this phrase where we'll just say, I see you.
Yes.
And the power in saying I see you is that the person that's next to you is not trying to fix it. They're not trying to there it. They're not trying to compare their situation to yours.
Right.
They're just honoring it and saying, I'm here.
Well, and I think we're all humans. We see something wrong and we immediately, we want to put a Band-Aid on it. We want to fix it. We love our friends and family. So obviously you don't want someone hurting. But I think what we all have to remember is that there is no fixing something like what I experienced or what you've experienced or anyone who's gone through a traumatic event, whatever, like you've said before, whatever your 10 is,
right.
Whatever your 10 is, whatever traumatic event that is, there's no fixing it. And our initial reaction always just to try to fix or to try to say oh, well, it'll be okay when, or at least it was early, or you have a child, so be grateful for that. And and that's, I'm just speaking from my own experience. And obviously it's well-intentioned. People want to make you feel better, but what it does instead is it makes you feel like there's something wrong with you, that I'm not better yet, or why do I still feel so deeply about this loss? Or when in reality, you're always going to feel this loss. You're always going to feel it, and it will come and go. The strength of the pain, and maybe it'll be a day, and then 5 days, and then 2 weeks before you feel like, oh shit, today is a hard day. But that instinct to fix, we need to do better, I think, as people, about just letting that be uncomfortable. Oh, I want to fix it, but I'm not going to say that because nothing's going to fix it, and it's just going to make this person feel like there's something innately wrong with them, because grief is, you can't fix it.
Well, grief is not a problem,
yes.
Right? It's a process.
Yes.
And so you're right, there is no fixing it. And grief is also, it's unique to us all.
Right.
Somebody compared it to a fingerprint, and I love that. We all grieve very differently. But there are things that consistently were helpful to me. And I'm not going to say I know what somebody's going through ever. And that was something that I really didn't like. People would regularly come up to me and say, I know exactly what you're going through because my mom died of cancer. My husband died of cancer. And that's not fair. It first of all takes away from Leah, right, and who my relationship with her was. I don't even know what somebody else is feeling who has lost a child to DIPG.
Right.
And I think we all need to stop saying, I know what you're going through, because you have no idea.
Right.
And we don't need to. We don't need to know what somebody's going through to show up and support them. And when you say, I know what you're going through because of this, it also takes away from their unique experience.
Exactly.
And it also takes away from your ability to be there to support them, because it makes it about you.
Yeah.
And this is not about you.
And I'm always so grateful, especially to you and our friendship. There were moments, and there are moments still, where we each sometimes have a day or a moment where we need the support of each other. And I feel like we've been really good at sort of, okay, this is her time and this is her space, and I'm going to honor that and let that be what she needs. And I'll never forget the day I came to the pool club and you made it all about me and what I needed, and that was exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important, that it's not about, I'm going to show up for you because I've been in pain too. I'm going to show up for you because I know you're in pain, and I'm going to sit with you right in your pain and make sure that you know that I'm here, no matter how ugly it gets.
And that's hard for a lot of people to do, because especially in this country where we're privileged and we have a lot of luxury and comforts, people don't like discomfort.
Right.
It's why my business is particularly unpopular as a strength coach who asks people to be uncomfortable and put themselves in uncomfortable situations.
Right.
It's why we don't talk about this stuff, which is why I want to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
It's why people would see me in Target and turn around and walk away,
Yeah.
because they don't know what to say. It's uncomfortable.
And I think that phrase, I just don't know what to say, you don't have to say anything to support someone in their grief or their pain. You don't have to say a word. Just showing up, whether that's leaving something on their doorstep because you know that they don't feel like cooking dinner, or
I never feel like cooking dinner, so grieving or not, I don't want to cook dinner. So anytime you want to leave food,
Noted.
it's welcome.
But just, there's so many ways. Sending a card, giving a hug, a smile, looking you in the eyes. There's so many ways to say, I'm here and I see you, even though there's nothing I can say.
What we want to do.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
And I think the uncomfortable thing is there's nothing to do,
There's
but
nothing
just
to do.
bear witness and hold space
Yeah.
and sit. And so if there's, I want to just sort of rapid fire things experiences that we've had that were not helpful,
Yeah.
and then experiences that we've had that have been helpful for
Yeah.
grieving people. And our losses are different, but loss is loss, and pain is grief and grief. And I've been able to support people through multiple situations in their lives because the principle is the same
Yes.
regardless, right? If
Yes.
someone's in pain, if somebody is hurting or grieving, what can you do? The first thing is, let's talk about my least favorite question ever. How are you?
How are you?
Because first of all, we really, right, truth. Because you don't really want to know the answer, right? I feel that's not a question that really most people really want to know how I am. It's just a formality.
Right.
And I will never forget the day that somebody asked me this question, and it's, how is today for you? And the reason that's so powerful is because it allows you to show up differently.
Right.
And it honors the space for you to share that in that question.
Yes.
Whereas, how are you? I know for a fact, I've watched exchanges where it's been, how are you? Good. How are you? Good. And I know they're not good.
Right.
But they're saying that.
Right.
And we want everyone to be good, but we're not good.
Right.
People are hurting. People are in pain. And that is not helpful.
Right.
So I love, how is today for you? I also love, it's so nice to see you.
Yes. I think another thing that is helpful is honoring, because I think one of the fears is that, I know you've said this and I sometimes feel it too, especially in my case, for me, my miscarriages were, not a lot of people knew the first time. The second time more people knew that I was pregnant. But sometimes I feel like people forget, and I'm sort of, I still remember all the time. And so it really is helpful when people honor, like, we found out that second was a girl. And so people will say, how are you feeling about the loss of her? It just gives an identity, whatever the grief or the loss is, it just gives, it's important to remember, and to, especially for someone you feel close to and comfortable enough to say those things and to have that conversation. Maybe that's not a conversation you have with everyone,
Right.
that they're going through something. But as a grieving person, I feel like it's helpful when people remember and honor your loss and say Leah's name, or ask how I'm feeling, or remember my due date. Things that a couple of my friends sent me flowers on my due date, and that was just they didn't need to do that, but it was a really nice way of saying we've
got you.
Yeah, we've got you. So that was really helpful. I mean, I'm a chef, but food is helpful.
I'd never cook for you.
Or just Uber Eats.
Yeah, there you
You
go.
can change the address in Uber Eats to someone else's house. It's really great.
Fun fact. Helpful tip.
Yeah, helpful tip.
And I also think there's so much power. Some of the most powerful interactions I've had with people have been where we haven't said a word to each other. We've just looked each other in the eyes.
Yeah.
Right? Because that could be uncomfortable for people. Do it anyway. Be uncomfortable. You're
Yeah.
not going to die from looking somebody in the eyes, even though
Right.
you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
and just holding their hands
Yep.
or offering a hug. I always ask permission to give people hugs because
Right.
sometimes people don't want a hug, so can I give you a hug?
Yep. I think if you have children, like, does your child want to come over and play with our kids? Like, to give a person space. I think that was really helpful for me a few times. And it just sort of, there's so much, and offering to do mundane things, like, hey, can I post on your Instagram for a few months so that you don't have to think about that? Or, whatever it is, like, let me do your grocery shopping, or I'm gonna pick up your dry cleaning, whatever it is. Because I think when a person, especially in the beginning, but also when a person is grieving or experiencing a loss, that kind of stuff can be really hard to even think about doing, because your brain and your emotional being is so focused. Like, if you have 100 pieces of energy, 99.9 of those are focused on just getting through that moment. And dealing with that pain. And I think when a person offers to do something that, like, is part of your day-to-day, it's really helpful because you don't have to think about that thing.
I remember when Leah was really sick toward the end, and then after she died, I hated being asked, what can I do for you? Or let me know what you need, because I didn't know what I needed. Like, I was just trying to get out of bed in the morning, right? And, like, feed my kids and, like, take a shower. But people would just do things. They sent somebody over to mow our lawn. They just dropped dinner off with no expectation, just here's dinner. I drink alcohol, so if your friend is not drinking alcohol, then maybe is a recovering alcoholic. That's probably not a good idea. But I drink alcohol, so my friends would drop off bottles of alcohol or dinner, or like, and it came with no strings attached, meaning they would drop it and go and not use it as a way to see me,
Right.
because I didn't want to be seen a lot of days, and on the days that I did, I would be like, turn around and come back, I want to see you.
Yeah.
But flowers, and they were just due. I think the point is just showing up for people and not forgetting them.
Yeah.
And we had a fundraiser this past weekend for Leah, and I had no idea who was going to be there, and it was so overwhelming to me to see people showing up almost 2 years later. I put it out there very publicly, but I didn't hand invite people.
Right.
But to have people bear witness to an uncomfortable situation, right? Like her funeral. That was really, I'm sure, very uncomfortable for a lot of people to attend a funeral of a 6-year-old girl from somebody they love. And the people that did that, I remember.
Yeah.
And the people that were there on that night, it meant a lot to me. And there's that power in showing up and loving somebody, and not making it about you.
Yeah, I think, we're always so quick to celebrate each other's successes and loves and joys. I almost think we need to be quicker to celebrate the hard and the ugly and the awful things. Not celebrate, but like to put yourself in it with them, because that's, everybody will celebrate a happy thing. But to be with someone, by someone's side, holding their hand, figuratively or literally, through the hard stuff, you never forget that, and it almost makes your bond with the people who do that for you, like, just so deep and so real.
It's next level.
Yeah, it's next level.
And I call them the mud sitters.
Yes.
There's people who will sit in the mud with you, and then there's people who cannot handle the mud.
Yeah.
They are the people in white who don't want to be messy, who don't want to get dirty, who don't want to be uncomfortable, and who don't really want to support you in a way that brings them out of their comfort zone. And that's fine for them. But you quickly realize who is there for you and who isn't. And at some point in your life, you are going to lose somebody or something, or you are going to grieve, because death is inevitable and you are going to be in pain. And I think having these conversations is super important, because when you're in pain, I really want people to be okay with not being okay. And really be okay with sitting in the mess and not fighting to get out. I remember somebody that trains with us, who we're close with, they lost their son recently. Her son died of cancer, and she said, how do you get out of the mud? And I'm further in this than she is. And I said, you don't. You sit in it. And you say, I'm going to try again tomorrow. And there might be a whole month when you're in the mud. There might be a year where you're in the mud. And we need mud-sitting friends. We need to surrender to the pain and to the discomfort and know that it's not going to kill us.
Right.
We can do it. We can survive another day. The sun sets on our most awful day, and this is a mantra I tell myself: the sun sets on my most awful day, and it rises again. Like, want it to or not, it's going to rise, and I'm going to try again. And some days the needle moves, right? And other days it doesn't. But I know on every day I can show up. And on every day I can love myself regardless. And on every day I have mud sitters with me. I have people bearing witness.
Yeah.
And I understand that as a privilege, and not everyone has that. And I hope that you have that.
Yeah.
But there is power in bearing witness and in seeing and in not fixing their theiring, negating, sharing your shit when they're trying to share theirs.
Right. Yeah. Be grateful.
Right. Be grateful for your other 2 children. And I am, but
Of
I
course.
still want my 3rd child back.
Right.
You know, it's like, I read this thing that said, well, which one of your children would you give up?
Right.
You have 3 too? Okay, which one would you give up?
Yeah. It's just about honoring and holding space.
And I think that, you know, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. Well, you don't have to say anything.
Right.
Just know that you don't have to say anything.
And I think saying, I see you, I'm here, is the most powerful thing you can say.
And
There's
continuing to say that.
There's no
months later.
expectation. There's no pressure. It's just that, like, my heart is open to your heart and sees it and will be there on your worst day and on your best day.
Suddenly people tell me a lot of things now that I've experienced my own pain and trauma, and sometimes I'll say, the dark in me sees the dark in you.
My cold black heart.
Right, my black heart honors your black heart. Like, my pain bears witness to your pain, and we can be sitting here, and it's certainly, I would give it back. I would give it all back for her, but I don't have that choice.
Right.
But I do have a lot of choices, right? I have choices in showing up, continuing to show up, not how I show up. Sometimes I don't even have control over that, but I can continue to show up.
Yeah.
I can continue to surround myself with people that love me and support me, and I continue to love myself regardless, and I can continue to honor this process that is grief and know that it is going to be with me forever, and I might not like it, but I can endure it.
Yeah.
I can surrender to it. I can persist.
And I think for my own sort of journey, I've learned a ton about myself, and also a ton about how to see other people. Like you said, you know, like, to see people with kindness and openness and sensitivity all the time, because you never know. There's so many things and days and experiences that can be joyful for some and triggering for others. And so I think same, I would give back the last year in a heartbeat, but, you know, here I am, and I have learned so much, and I have so much appreciation for the strength of humans, but also, like, my eyes are wide open, and so is my heart, because it's the only way for me to be at this point.
Thank you for opening your hearts and your eyes.
I love you.